Hello friends. The 861st day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. In the Lyman section of the Kharkiv direction, further enemy advancement in Makiivka is recorded. The Russians advanced in the north of the settlement and occupied Siverskyi Street, and in the central part they managed to reach the Zherobits River. The enemy managed to advance to a depth of 4.45 kilometers, and to a depth of 950 meters in the section. Russian troops captured the entire Kanal microdistrict in Chasiv Yar in the Bakhmut direction. This was reported by the military telegram channel Deep State, and later the Russian Defense Ministry announced the same. Deep State denies the statements of officials that the enemy was driven out of the city. Unfortunately, mistakes have to be paid for with people and territory. If everything continues to be fine, the situation will be on the brink of disaster, the telegram channel writes. The mistakes named include attempts to restore positions when it makes no sense, and defense at unfavorable lines, and sometimes in encirclement. The Kanal microdistrict is the eastern part of Chasiv Yar, which is located to the east of the Siverskyi Donets-Donbas canal. Let me remind you that in yesterday's video, I said that the enemy published footage of the occupation of a multi-story building in the western part of the microdistrict. The loss of Kanal is also confirmed by the commander of the Revenge Battalion, Pokrovsk. In his opinion, now the loss of all of Chasiv Yar is getting closer, which will turn Konstiantynivka into a frontline city, and will generally have serious consequences for the operational situation in Donbas. The enemy has completely occupied the Kanal district of the city of Chasiv Yar, at the cost of huge losses and the actual destruction of all multi-story buildings. The Russians succeeded, and, despite the disproportionate losses, the loss of Chasiv Yar has become closer. In the long term, this has serious consequences for changing the operational map of Donbas. Next stop is Konstiantynivka, Pokrovsk writes. He believes that the Ukrainian armed forces should launch a counteroffensive and retake strategic positions. Apparently, before attempting to further attack Chasiv Yar itself, the Russians will try to expand the control zone along the canal in the Orlova tract in the direction of Kalynivka. Let me remind you that despite numerous attacks in Kalynivka, the Russians have not yet managed to break our defense in the settlement. When advancing along the Orlova tract, the enemy will be able to completely cut off the eastern part of Kalynivka. In general, the situation in Chasiv Yar looks very complicated. The enemy has gained enough positions along the Siverskyi Donets-Donbas canal, which in the future will allow him to attack Chasiv Yar with a wide envelopment. Naturally, attacking in a 5 to 10 kilometer wide area, where the enemy will be able to slip through with small forces and subsequently concentrate forces in the breakthrough area. In the Toretsk direction, Russian troops advanced 4 kilometers this time, to the south of Niu-York. According to the Deep State map, the fighting is taking place on the southern outskirts of the village. Let me remind you that Niu-York is a large fortified area of the Ukrainian armed forces on the Toretsk section of the front. In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians advanced along the railway towards the settlement of Prohres and captured 2 strongholds. The enemy's advance is recorded at a width of 1.67 kilometers and a depth of up to 850 meters. Further south, the enemy continues to advance in Krasnohorivka. The situation is very difficult, the 46th Brigade's telegram channel reports. In the near future, the occupiers will reach the northern part of the city. In the future, we will gain access to the southern face of the defense of the Ukrainian Armed Forces Group near Nevelsky. Together with the movement of the Russians on the northern face near Kalynivka, we get an unpleasant configuration of troops with threats on the flanks, the 46th Brigade's telegram channel writes. The Russians also advanced more than 2 kilometers east of Vuhledar, coming within 6 kilometers of the city from that direction. This is not the first advance from Vuhledarivka. Deep State reported another such advance in this area on June 24. Zelensky spoke today about the possibility of a new Ukrainian offensive. In an interview with Bloomberg, he dismissed the assertion that Ukrainian and Russian troops are in a stalemate on the battlefield, saying the army is better staffed now than it was several months ago, and a new offensive is a matter of arming the brigades. Zelensky also called on Trump to voice his plan for a quick end to the war in Ukraine. If Trump knows how to end this war, he should tell us about it today. If there are risks to Ukrainian independence, if we lose statehood, we want to be ready for this, we want to know, Zelensky said in an interview with Bloomberg. He said that he was potentially ready to meet with Trump and listen to his team's proposals. They cannot plan my life and the lives of our people and our children. We want to understand whether we will have strong support from the United States in November or whether we will be left completely alone, Zelensky said. Let me remind you that Politico, citing sources, previously wrote that Trump, if he wins the upcoming presidential election, will stop NATO expansion to the east, including into Ukraine and Georgia. Under a previously unreported plan for Ukraine, the presumptive Republican nominee is mulling a deal in which NATO agrees not to expand eastward, specifically into Ukraine and Georgia, and is negotiating with Russian President Putin over how much of Ukraine's territory Moscow can keep for itself, according to two other national security experts who support Trump, the publication reported. Friends, this channel exists solely thanks to your support. If you have the opportunity and desire to support the channel, I will be very grateful to you. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.